But what about having empathy for certain principles that people believe? For example, the pushback, the other perspective on this, because you said bought the myth of Trump as the great businessman. There could be a lot of people that are supporters of Trump who could say that Sam Harris bought the myth that we have this government of the people by the people that actually represents the people, as
Mm.
opposed to a bunch of elites who are running a giant bureaucracy that is corrupt, that is feeding themselves, and they're actually not representing the people. And then here's this chaos agent, Trump, who speaks off the top of his head. Yeah, he's flawed in all this number of ways. He's a more comedian than he is a presidential type of figure. And he's actually creating the kind of chaos that's going to shake up this bureaucracy, shake up the elites that are so uncomfortable because they don't want the world to know about the game that got running on everybody else. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
that's the kind of
yeah.
perspective that they would take and say, yeah, there's these flaws that Trump has, but this is necessary.
I agree with the first part. So I haven't bought the myth that it's a truly representative democracy in the way that we would might idealize. And on some level, I mean, this is a different conversation, but on some level, I'm not even sure how much I think it should be. Right? Like I'm not sure uh, we want in the end everyone's opinion given equal weight about just what we should do about anything, and I include myself in that. I mean, there are many topics around which I don't deserve to have a strong opinion because I don't know what I'm talking about, right, or what I would be talking about if I had a strong opinion. So, um, and I think we'll probably get to that to some of those topics because I've declined to have certain conversations on my podcast just because I think I'm the wrong person to have that conversation, right? And it's and I think it's important to see those bright lines in one's life and in the moment politically and ethically. So yeah, I think so. Leave aside the viability of democracy, but I'm under no illusions that all of our institutions are worth preserving precisely as they have been up until the moment this great orange wrecking ball came swinging through our lives. But it was a very bad bet to elect someone who is grossly incompetent and worse than incompetent, um, genuinely malevolent in his selfishness. Right. And this is something we know based on literally decades of him being in the public eye. Right. He's not a public servant in any normal sense of that term. And he couldn't possibly give an honest or sane answer to the question you asked me about empathy and reason and like how should we what should guide us. Um, I genuinely think he is missing some necessary moral and psychological tools, right? And this is I can feel compassion for him as a human being because I think having those things is incredibly important, and genuinely loving other people is incredibly important, and knowing what all that's about is that's really the good stuff in life. And I think he's missing a lot of that. But I think we don't want to promote people to the highest positions of power in our society who are far outliers in pathological terms, right? We want them to be far outliers in if in the best case in wisdom and compassion and some of the topics you've brought up. I mean, we want someone to be deeply informed. We want someone to be um, uh, unusually curious, unusually alert to how they may be wrong or getting things wrong consequentially. He's none of those things. And if, insofar as we're going to get normal mediocrities in that role, which I think is often the best we could expect, let's get normal mediocrities in that role, not once in a generation narcissists and frauds. I mean, it's like just take honesty as a single variable, right? I think you want, yeah, yes, it's possible that uh, most politicians lie at least some of the time. I don't think that's a good thing. I think people should be generally honest, even to a fault. Um, yes, there are certain circumstances where lying, I think, is necessary. It's kind of on a continuum of self-defense and violence. So it's like if you're going to, if the Nazis come to your door and ask you if you've got Anne Frank in the attic, I think it's okay to lie to them. But Trump, arguably there's never been a person that anyone could name in human history who's lied with that kind of velocity. I mean, he was just a blizzard of lies, great and small, to pointless and effective. But it's just it it says something uh, fairly alarming about our society that a person of that character got promoted. And so, yes, I have compassion and concern for half of the society who didn't see it that way, and that's going to sound elitist and smug or something for anyone who's on that side listening to me. But it's genuine. I mean, I understand that like I barely have I'm like one of the luckiest people in the world, and I barely have the bandwidth to pay attention to half the things I should pay attention to in order to have an opinion about half the things we're going to talk about, right? So how much less bandwidth is somebody who's working two jobs, or a single mom who's raising multiple kids, even a single kid. It's unimaginable to me that people have the bandwidth to really track this stuff. And so then they jump on social media and they get inundated by misinformation, and they see what their favorite influencer just said. And now they're worried about vaccines, and we're living in an environment where the information space has become so corrupted, and we've built machines to further corrupt it. I mean, we've built a business model for the internet that further corrupts it. So it is just it's chaos in informational terms, and I don't fault people for being confused and impatient and at their wits' end. And yes, Trump was an enormous fuck you to the establishment, and that was understandable for many reasons.